So a log of bolted beech on the lathe, and I have marked along the length of it the same as the diameter of the log. So in theory we should get a cube out of what I have left, and there's enough for two here, so I'll put one to the side. Now that was my thinking, but it didn't work out that way, as you'll see in a little while. So measuring half the length, finding the center of this log, and the idea is that I'm just finding the center so that I can jam it against the fully open jaws and put the live center against where I'm marking now, the center, and in theory that's holding it in the center of the... It's the only way I could work out how to hold it this way on the lathe without drilling it and putting screw chucks or making glue blocks and jigs and all that. This was just a quicker way of doing it, and it's pretty safe. I mean, you'll see there that when it's jammed against the jaw there and then the live center brought up, it goes nowhere, and it's a good way of centralizing the stock on the lathe as well. You'll see I test it there, it doesn't go anywhere, it's solid. And we're going to turn a tenon on one side of it so that we can reverse it and make it a bit safer and put it in the chuck. Just using a bowl gouge and a square nose scraper, and you want to get this as square as possible. Now it's not going to be perfect until you get the other side squared up, and then you can go from that. So just get it near enough for this side, just for measurements, as you'll see in just a second. There we go, and we can reverse that now and put it into the chuck and tighten it up. Okay, so this is going to be our first full side of the cube. We're going to square it up again. We're using the bowl gouge, and we'll use the square nose scraper. And we want to get this as accurate as possible. So I'll use a ruler in 1 second just to make sure it's square, which it isn't to start with, and you'll see we'll have to take it out the center to square it up. Using the calipers to make sure that we're going to get the full potential of the log and get the biggest cube out of it as possible. Nice sharp tools just to make sure that we get quite a nice finish on it, and with as little sanding as possible. The scraper is a nice way of getting a nice square cut. There we go. You can see there's a slight raised area in the center, so I just need to clean the center part up there, and then it works out pretty well. You see it's square. There we go. That's spot on now. There's no rock on the ruler. So now we have our first side that we can work off, and we take a measurement. We find the center of the block again. So in theory we're finding the center of our cube now, and we do exactly the same thing. We turn it in, turn it round, jam it against the chuck and the live center, and we turn another tenon on this side, and that way we can hold it any way we want now. It worked out well doing it this way. It was a lot quicker than messing with jigs and things. Just checking my measurements and making sure we're square. Turn it round again, and now we can get our second fully square side. This will work out about a 60mm outer cube, which is about 2¼ inches, I think, and the inner cube will be, I think it works out 30mm, which is what, 1 3/8, I think. So just squaring up the side now and making sure that we've got all equal measurements. And again, just bring it down to size. Make a nice square cut. Check it all again, that's spot on. And just again checking the measurements with the calipers. Now our cube fits inside the chuck, so we don't have to worry about the turns. And as you can see there now, this is what I was saying about whatever went wrong with my maths. We've ended up with a rectangle and not a cube, so I've got to just take a small bit off the end. I don't know, maybe there's some kind of clever mathematics to work that out, but I don't know it. So I'll just take the spare bit off, and now we have our cube. Just clean this side up. Checking all our measurements. I think, yeah, that's right. Beautiful piece of wood. And now we'll turn it round and we can remove the original tenons that were on it. We can just get rid of those and we will be left with a perfect cube. No point sanding or anything yet. Nice and tight, it's pretty accurate. You have to have your outer cube right, because if your outer cube isn't right, when you go to turn your inner cube, you get into all sorts of trouble. Now I'm working out what size my inner cube is going to be, so I know how deep to cut with each side, the holes that I'm going to turn. You want to leave the walls of your outer cube as thick as, well, not as thick as possible, but quite thick so that it's not weak once you've finished it. You don't want it flexible or to break easy. Just messing about trying to find my tools. Now we're going to start with a skew. It's a 1/2 inch skew, and just start clearing away the hole. And we're going to bring the hole out to roughly the square, that so it meets all 4 sides of the square that I've marked on top. And once I get my first hole right, I can use the calipers to size it, and I can use the calipers each time then. Now the trick of the illusion of this is that you've got to undercut each of the holes, so your outer diameter is smaller than your inner diameter, which creates the cube inside, and it makes the walls of the cube bigger than the outer holes, if that makes sense. So it's all undercutting. Otherwise you won't have a captive cube. It will just fall out the holes if you cut them just straight in, because obviously your cube works out whatever outer edges of your diameter are. That's how it cuts. When you try this, it does make sense. It's very hard to explain, but hopefully I've shown how it's done here. So I'm using the skew chisel just to, it's kind of like turning a mortise when you're going to put it on a chuck, but you exaggerate the angle to try and get as big a hole on the inside, compared to the outside as possible. Just checking my depths with the ruler, making sure that all the depths are the same. The trick of this is to make every cut on each side exactly the same. Bit of tape on the outside just to protect it from the jaws. I missed one side there, but I wasn't over tightening it. So, and again, off we go with another hole. This is the second one. Oh no, sorry, it's the third one. So what I'm doing now is I'm just working out how much deeper. I didn't quite have my sums worked out, so I've just got to go a slightly bit more deeper on each of the 3 holes so that it starts opening them up, and you'll see a gap appear then, and you'll see the cube magically appearing inside. You can just make it out there now. It does zoom in a second for you to see. Not over tightening on the jaws, just because it's a cube, it holds very well in the chuck. And the final clean up on them all, just to open them up. And what you do is you turn them down just so that there's just a slight bit holding all the corners, because if you clean it all away, when you get to cutting your last hole, the cube will break free and it will rattle about inside, and you won't get a perfect side when you're turning it, or you could damage it, or your tool could get jammed. So you want to leave the cube fixed right until the last minute, and then you release it with a knife, as you'll see at the end. So there you go. It will zoom in now, and you'll see that the cube is appear in there. You can see the hole in my arm through it. So now I know how deep I need to go with them all. I can start working on the other sides, and this is the sanding process. So use a sanding block. Don't try and hold it with your hand, because you'll round off the sides and it won't look very nice. So a sanding block keeps the sides square, and that's got some finish on it just to show you. It's just showing you where the 3 sides have formed the cube. And again, this is the final hole now. So that's sanded up, and a bit of Yorkshire grit on all the sides to finish it up, inside and out. You can finish the inside block as well as the outside block or cube, and that's it. I've used plenty of tape to protect it after I've sanded each side, and that's it. So now what you do is you just use the knife, X-Acto knife, or one of the extendable knives that you can get a good long blade in. Watch the sides of your circles that you don't nick them, and just release them. A little tap with something that's not going to damage the wood, and it just clicks it loose. Make sure you cut it with a knife. If you don't and you just try and hit it, you could break the edge of your inner block off, and it doesn't look nice. That's what I did with my first attempt, and that is loose now. It's just very tight. And then just clean up any leftovers with the knife, and you can just sand them lightly and finish them off like the rest. There does be a little bit of a burr on the inside of the large block as well, which you can clean off as well. So it's easy enough to clean off. And there you have it, one captive cube inside a cube. I was very happy with the way this turned out. That's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's a bit of a different video, I know. Don't forget to like and share the video, and if you're not already, please subscribe. Thanks, guys. Bye bye.